Hello, dearest Africans, my people, the good people of Africa, dear brethren. Benikari, coming to you once more. It behooves me to express without equivocation that as Africans, we have no option but to see and live in reality. We must cease acting like we do not know what reality is or means. We, of course, know what's meant by reality, which is what we know and see to be true, can behold, because it is true, and can also be traced if at a distance. Reality is the life that we live every day, not abstraction, not wishful thinking, but the life we live, the life of struggle, the life of pain, and the life of sweetness as well, the life of insecurity, the troubled life, the life of mental illnesses, challenges, the life and reality of physical health challenges. These are all the real life we live. It is reality. It is the reality that people help people, and people also take advantage of people, unfortunately. People act as what you will call, or some call, God to themselves, to each other, because you're not going to see anything or anyone called God coming down from anywhere, whether from the under or from above. Those were just conceptual thoughts. They were human constructs and are still human construct, which doesn't align with reality. So, we must get back into reality, into the real life we face in this world, and do all we can as a people to help ourselves, to help liberate Africa, to put Africa back once more on the map where it belongs. Reality, of course, for example, is that Africa has so much wealth of natural, mineral, and human resources, but we have very little to show for it when considering the abundance of human and mineral resources that Africa has. The success or successes so achieved are like a drop of water in the bucket or a drum. Very infinitesimal. Therefore, another reality is that Africans, although we are gravitating toward unity, are not united. And this is largely due to the colonial, imperial division of the continent into smaller units smaller pieces and some bigger units as well, and making us feel like enemies, rivals, instead of brothers and sisters who were supposed to live in abundance with the dictum of management wisdom. And Europeans, Euro Americans, they make it so strategic that Africa has to depend almost 100% on them. Of course, now the tide has turned a bit, and China, Russia are in the picture, and they've made Africa a battleground, a battlefield, to the extent that the US lawmakers are considering making the military posts in Africa, especially around Burkina Faso, Mali, and the Niger Republic, like a war zone, which is they have to pay the military men there as if they are at the war front. Who knows what they are planning? Of course, we know that there was a time when American lawmakers passed law that would punish any African country that refused to obey the so-called rules of not dealing with either Russia or any other country they feel happen to be their enemy. They want their so-called enemies to be the enemies of Africans as well. But as Mandiba rightly said in his interview in somewhere New York, he said they want us to make their enemy our enemy. But we reject that. And he was right. Africa must not make the mistake to join forces with the West and make their enemy or its enemy the enemy of Africa. No, things don't work like that. No African country, or assuming Africa were to be one solid, formidable bloc, a country with one government, one military, and all of that, one currency, as we dream for it to be. It cannot tell America what to do. It cannot tell the UK what to do. It cannot tell France what to do. It cannot tell any one of them. None in Europe. It cannot. So why must America, France, and the rest of them expect African countries to act as though they are their stooge or stooges, to act as though they are their slaves? Because of course they still have this slave master mentality. And because we Africans have refused to rise up, we have depended so much on them for nearly everything. Luckily, China is in the picture. China has been one of the best students of global happenings, global affairs, international politics. The Chinese, they've so tactically and committedly studied American and other Western governments' policy toward Africa. A policy that is not in the best interest of the African child, not in the best interest of the African people, but the overall interest of America, the UK, France, and the rest of the West. it is obvious that France was still colonizing some African countries, and as it is, still colonizing them, even though you call it um, economic colonization, or as I call it, economic slavery. So it is happening. Okay? Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic, they've shown us what's possible. Therefore, there is reason for us, Africans, to collectively join forces, support Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic. The unity they've created has helped them a great deal, weighed off a lot of things. Even when France and America, the rest of the West, tried to use ECOWAS against them, they united. They had this agreement, both security and economy. An attack on one is an attack on all. You see the strength. That is enough to tell other African states that the time is now for one solid, formidable African government with one Central African army and African currency that will be backed by its natural mineral resources and would compete against the dollar and the rest of them. It will not be in the overall best interest of America, but if that is what Africans choose to do, we have every right to do so. It is about sovereignty. Sovereignty or self-determination is both natural and international law. Even though they don't obey it, they discuss them, write them down, impose it on smaller countries, especially countries of Africa, but they don't obey it. Nobody is telling America what to do with Israel, even when Israel is committing genocide. America keep giving Israel ammunition, tons and tons and tons of bombs. America just gave Israel $26 billion to kill some more. Even after over 35,000, mostly children and women, have been killed. In Gaza, almost half of Gaza decimated. America, the so-called the so-called the epitome of democracy, of human right, of justice, and all of that. What has happened has exposed what some of us have been saying, that there's no democracy in America. And there's no democracy anywhere in the world, because democracy is government of the people. So if you are not doing what the people want, if you're not listening to the people and you are doing the interest, the bidding of small group of people, of a small country by the name Israel, if Israel and its lobby groups in America are able to sit here in America and manipulate, deceive, remote control, use money to buy, to influence, to punish those who speak against Israel, to the extent that people cannot speak against Israel. If you say anything against the policy of Israel, that is completely out of line, they say anti-Semitic, anti-Semitism. You are anti-Jew, you're anti-this. Rubbish. Israel cannot be an island. It cannot be an untouchable elephant that nobody can criticize when it's wrong. No, even Israelis in Israel are criticizing the government. But when you criticize Israel in America, that is supposed to be a free country, free world, look at what's happening to students across American university campuses. They are being manhandled by the police just for demanding ceasefire, just for demanding divestment, and all of that. So, Africa must understand that the time is now to stand up, to stand up, take advantage of the resources, the human and mineral resources. Work with countries that are ready to work with you. Take good advantage. Let them bring the technology, transfer the technology. Let them teach the African people how to be able to sustain the African system with technological know-how. It is high time Africa has a rethink, a redirect toward the Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic's model. In short, it is time to rally round these three. Let them be the base that Africans will rally round. I know politicians in the different countries are enjoying, the division. They're benefiting from the division. Countries like Nigeria, for instance, that is said to be the richest or one of the richest, even though more than 130 million people are in serious poverty, and the country cannot even generate constant electricity and water supply. I mean, yes, it has a great deal of resources that the government conscript from weak so-called minority ethnic groups, but let's give it to her that it has resources. What is it doing with it? What is Nigeria doing with it? Why is it that over 130 million people are poor, very poor, out of about 200 million or thereabout? Sometimes they say 250 million, when we know that there's never been any accurate census in that country. They just double things up, you know, to make it look real. But even though it were to be 250 million people, even 300 million people, that would have meant the ability to create more, to use the resources of human and minerals to create more, to advance in science and technology and infrastructure development. But look at the reality. That is not to say that, some of the governments have not attempted to write things in certain ways, but no government has been able to actually put the country on the path of success. Because if you're not able to generate electricity, how do you go about industrialization? It's not possible. And so it is time. Kwame Nkrumah saw it and so warned about the divisiveness, about the polarization created by colonialism. And this was a deliberate strategic attempt, strategic design, policy to keep the exploitation of Africa going. It was the 1884-1885 Berlin Conference that brought peace to Europe. If not, they've been known to be fighting themselves. And so after they fought the First World War, and it ended, instead of going back to war again on Africa, or because of Africa, because they went to war, First World War, because of who to get what from different parts of the world, especially Africa, and other factors. So they peacefully resolved when they met in Berlin and say, okay, France take this part of Africa, okay, Germany take this part of Africa, okay, the UK take this part of Africa, and so on and so forth. Without the consent of the African people, they divided the whole place. Even bread is not divided the way they divided Africa, you know? And that has been the situation to this day. So Nkrumah warned against it and said African countries cannot succeed economically or socio-politically as individual countries. And 60 years later, almost all African countries are still struggling. They're not anywhere close. What that means is that a united Africa, one Africa, under one government, one military, one currency, is the answer, as the unity between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic has shown. Therefore, there's no need to keep chasing shadows. We have to come back to reality. We have to come back to reality and use our resources. Africa don't need the world. The world needs Africa. So take advantage of that. Get the best out of it. They've been taking it, stealing it all this while and creating all kinds of division and clashes, plotting and executing coups here and there. But now that the consciousness level is high, there is need, obvious need, to take advantage of this new African rush to determine what's what and not let the West determine for Africa what Africa should do, who Africa should be friends with, who Africa should sell to or buy from. Because they will not let Africa dictate to them. That's obvious. When dealing with Africans, they don't respect us. They don't respect our so-called leaders. They treat them as babies. And of course, when these so-called leaders deal with Americans, European diplomats, they act like babies. They shake like they've seen God. That inferiority complex just hits. Yet, they're just human beings. They are from us. They are from Africans because Africa is the cradle of humankind. Every human DNA can be traced back to Africa. That's where life started. Nobody can dispute that. Today, that the technology is everywhere, that Africa is supposed to be on top. Africa is acting like a child. The Africa of old is even better than the Africa today. Why? It mustn't be so. We have to think. The only thing the West use to deceive, divide, control, and manipulate us is their brain. It's their brain. And then they tap into the division, which they, of course, created deliberately, knowing the outcome. But we can deny them of that. We can ask them to withdraw all their military from Africa. It is possible. Niger Republic just did it. Burkina Faso has done it. And Mali as well. Even one of the countries of late, recently, Gabon or one of those countries, just in the process of asking the American military to leave. What is American military doing in Africa? If you want to protect America, the military should be at home. You can't allow America to put military bases everywhere in Africa. And then if they have issue with one African country or they want to invade one African country, they don't have to fly from America. When they attacked Libya, did they fly from America? No, they never did. They flew from bases that were closer, bases in the Middle East, and all of that. That's what the bases are for. They are there to influence, to manipulate the affairs of any given state that they find themselves in. But they will not let you do that to them. They will not let any African country have a base, a military base in Mexico, not to talk of anywhere in America. So why condescend so low, O African politicians and rulers? The time is now to take advantage of this revolution. Let's change the ties. Let's change the name of the game. Let's understand ourselves and unite and decide who has the best deal that benefit us, and we work with that person. Africa should be open for business, but we have to decide who has the best deal that works in our favor. Africa can no longer continue to give 90% stake in African resources to foreign corporations. That is stupidity. It doesn't matter whether they have the machinery, the technological know-how. You have the resources. So they should take 40 and you take 60. At worst, 50-50. At worst. If not, you should take more. And if they don't like it, they should leave. And anyone who is willing to deal can come deal. That is how things are. Of course, America will not do 50-50, or they call it win-win. No, America don't do win-win. They're not going to do win-win with Africa. No. America wants to dominate. America is not a fair competitor. America cannot compete favorably. That's why it sees China at every turn as an enemy. China may have its own trouble or its own issues, but China has learned from the failures of America in Africa, the failures of UK and other Western countries, European countries in Africa, and is doing something different, doing what Africans will see, physical development, and not imposing on Africa its wishes as to what to do and what not to do, who to be friends with and who not to be friends with, who to sell to and who not to sell to. China has its own interest, and that is business. So if Africa allow China to cheat her, that's on Africa. Okay? And that's why I'm getting to that concept where we cannot blame the West too much any longer, because we allow the West to do what it does to us. If we don't allow it, it's not going to happen. Going back to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger Republic again, they've shown us we can say no. It's about sovereignty. It's about self-determination. That is both natural and international law. Therefore, my dearest people of Africa, African politicians, African rulers, the time is now. Just take advantage of the time. Seize the moment. Let the time of too much talk, grammar be bygone. Let us be practical. Let's make this dream a reality. There is power in number. There is force in strength, in unity. And they knew that. That's why they divided us. But we can deny them that today, even though they benefited so much from it. Of course, recently, Emmanuel Macron just told Europe that Europe may be over